I'm an adrenaline junkie. I suppose that's a good way to start this. My thoughts are a bit jumbled, so you'll have to bear with me. Chasing the high is how I spent all of my time. I'd skip out on bills if it meant I could afford going to one of the escape rooms in the country I hadn't been to yet. That was my biggest hobby for a time. Skydiving and other daredevil activities had stopped working a long time ago. They are always the same thing. If you've done it once, you've done it a million times. Escape rooms, though, they had a new puzzle to figure out each time. I guess it was only a matter of time before I'd grow out of that as well. At the age of 23, I discovered urban exploration. In my mind, this was basically the same thing as an escape room, except there aren't any actors. The dangers of being caught and fined only fueled the fire in me more. I made it my mission to find and document spirits. Of course, this was better in my head than it did in execution. Try and try, I might, but I couldn't find anything worth sharing with the world. Name almost any haunted place in the United States. I've been there, found nothing, and went home with doubts. Sure, I have some stories. One time I fell into an open elevator shaft and caught a rusted wire to save myself. It sounds cooler on paper, I promise. Another time I heard footsteps and voices on the floor above me in an abandoned asylum. Ran up and was met with another group. Disappointment isn't a strong enough word. Up until recently, the scariest encounter I ever had was stumbling upon a deranged homeless man who chased me out of an old farmhouse with a knife. That one revived my interest for a time, at least until I realized the odds of something like this happening again was slim to none. If you couldn't tell, I had a bit of a problem. Some would call me insane. For this reason, I had no friends, and my family avoided me like the plague. That was okay. I understood. My life is a lot to keep up with, so I stay busy either way. Well, I guess I did have one friend, even though I had never met him in person. We got to know each other through an urban exploration forum. If you thought I was obsessed, this guy brought it to a whole other level. His name was Derek. After a few interactions, we gave each other our real-life phone numbers and kept each other updated on our findings. This guy had the lowdown on everything. He knew of places Google didn't even know about. I lost countless jobs due to this lifestyle. It's tough finding an employer who won't get mad at me for leaving days at a time with no warning. How I made it work for as long as I did is just as much as a mystery to me as it probably is to you. Call it good luck in getting hired department or something. If I lost a job, I could find another one pretty quick. Of course, this meant I never worked anywhere prestigious. But hey, if I ever caught something worthwhile on camera, maybe I could set myself up for a while. As you can assume, this started seeming more and more like a fairy tale, day by day. My belief in the paranormal had dwindled to near absolute zero. I went a while wondering what was next for me. Doubt I'd find the next high creeping more and more into my subconscious every day. I was 25 now. I had spent 2 years wasting my life and had nothing to show for it. Just a sketchy job history and an empty bank account. It's not like I could do much with all my footage either. What was I going to do? Incriminate myself by publishing videos of me breaking into almost every place of interest in the United States? Surprisingly, I began to accept my fate. It was finally time to nut up and fix my life. For a few weeks, I tried reconnecting with my family and got on speaking terms with most of them. My old friends gave me the silent treatment, but honestly, I didn't blame them. Life was going okay for a time. That is, until I got a text from Derek. It read, "Hey Tom, I got intel on an abandoned asylum in Montana. I know those are your favorite. Going to check it out in a week. Supposed to be the real deal." many missing persons cases in the area. I'll send you the coordinates, so if you don't hear from me, you know where to look. You know me though, I always carry. Attached was an image with the coordinates. I'd be lying if I said his text didn't pique my interest, especially considering I live in northern Idaho, and this place wasn't all that far away. I've traveled all the way across the country before. This would be nothing, but my life was starting to move forward. I couldn't let this stop that. Plus, I knew Derek would update me if he found anything. Even if there wasn't, he'd text something like, "It was a bust," or something along those lines. Fast forward 2 weeks. I'm ashamed to say I had spent every day that last week waiting for an update. It was getting to me, so I texted Derek. "Hey Derek, find anything in Montana?" It wasn't like him to not update right away. As I said, he was really into this stuff, and it was like he couldn't wait to tell me everything once he returned home. I wouldn't have been surprised if I got a response within a few minutes. Fast forward another 2 weeks, and no response ever came. This left me with a moral dilemma. What if something did happen to Derek? What if he needed my help? The adrenaline-fueled habits returned to my mind, and I'm sure you can guess what happens next. This story wouldn't exist if I didn't do exactly what you expect. I had no info on the asylum, other than its location. It would have to do. I began the drive around noon. I'll spare you the nonsense of my driving excursion, considering I was held up a number of times by different annoyances. I arrived at 10 p.m. It was completely dark, just the way I like it. Arriving, it was a one-way in, one-way out road that was roughly 5 miles, if I had to guess. The place was eerie, to say the least. This place was decrepit. The windows were still intact, surprisingly. It was 6 stories. The asylum was massive. Pulling into the giant gravel parking lot, there were no other cars in sight. Okay, so maybe nothing happened to Derek. His car would still be here if he was, right? There was always the off chance he could have hit his car, but considering the desolation of the surroundings, there'd be no point. I grabbed my camera and began my walk. Reaching the steps, I felt a chill. How I miss that feeling. It's always worth checking if the front door is accessible. A lot can be told by whether or not front doors are unlocked. If they were unlocked, it could be a hotspot for locals. If not, it could be moderately patrolled. The giant double doors swung wide open without a budge. I was instantly hit with the smell of rot. This wasn't just normal rot. Trust me, over the past couple years I had smelt it all. This was putrid, like iron mixed with literal shit. Naturally, it was dark, but my military-grade flashlight lit the place up like it was daylight. My handheld Canon also had night vision, so seeing was no issue. In the main room, there was a front desk and 3 hallways, one leading straight and the other to either side of me. Odd. Usually there would be stairs here, but judging by the outside, this building could be older than any other I'd explored yet. I couldn't wait to see what I could find. Figuring the front doors were placed dead center, I decided to flip a coin. Heads, I'd go right, tails, I'd go left. I fished out a quarter and flipped it. Missing the catch, the quarter bounced off the ground. The sound echoed down all 3 hallways. It seemed to never end. Once the sound reached what seemed to be forever away, the sound started echoing back towards me. I'm no expert, but this didn't seem right. I was then smacked square in the forehead by something. It stung like hell. I heard the quarter again hit the ground. What the hell? Did the quarter just come flying down the hallway and hit me? No way it could bounce at the velocity I was hit with. Not that the former made sense either. Anybody with a logical brain would have left right then and there, but I was intrigued, not scared. Dreams of catching something and becoming famous began flooding my mind in the same way it used to. I shined the flashlight down to my feet to find the quarter. Yup, This place must be the real deal. The quarter was sitting on its side. I don't know the odds of that happening. I've never seen that before. I thought for a second. If I was hit in the forehead while facing forward and going forward was never an option, something really wanted me to go that way. If I was going to catch something on film, that would be the way to go. Forward I went. I walked about 100 yards when I came across stairs leading up. The building really was bigger on the inside. Maybe literally because there was still a lot of hallways to go. I ascended the stairs and reached the second floor. Looking back, I don't know how I didn't find it odd that the building was 6 stories, but these stairs only went up 1 floor. I was met with another hallway. Doors to individual rooms were littered both ways. Wheelchairs and other expected debris were littered everywhere. I decided to head right, the same direction I was heading on the first floor. I was curious how long this hallway really went. I pivoted to the right, and this is where things get real. 10 feet in front of me was a girl in a nightgown, long black hair covering her face. Holy shit, I caught something. I checked the camera, and she showed up clear as day. "Ma'am, do you need help?" I asked. I was ecstatic. This is something no one has ever captured before. The clearest footage possible. This was bound to go viral. I took a couple steps towards her. "Leave," she whispered. I couldn't think of much to say, but I managed a quick, "Why?" "Leave. Leave while you have the chance. You don't have much time," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked. This was unreal. Not only did I capture a spirit on film, but I was having a conversation with it. Derek wasn't kidding, I mumbled under my breath. "Derek didn't listen either," she instantly whispered. Wait, what does she mean? Derek didn't listen. This was everything I ever hoped for. But if the spirits here are this bold, why did Derek never say anything? I bet he was at home thinking about how to polish his own footage right now. That asshole. He was going to become famous first. I can't believe he didn't tell me about this. Money does strange things to people. In retrospect, I realize now this ideology applied to no one more than it did me. The magnitude of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm speaking to a spirit, face to face. She has told me to leave. Here I am just filming it like an idiot. Maybe I should go. I checked the camera again to make sure I was still capturing this. I was. I have what I need. Maybe I should just go. I took a step back, and the woman let out a scream and ran into the room closest to her. Okay, yeah, I'm leaving. This is too much even for me. I turned around, and before I could even react, I was cold clocked across the head. I hit the ground. The camera and flashlight flew out of my hand. I didn't try to retrieve them. I got back on my feet and took a few steps back. Standing in front of me was a man dressed as a surgeon. He was muscular, too muscular. This guy made Arnold look small. The look in his eyes was crazed to say the least. In his hand was a giant knife. I turned around and continued down the hallway as fast as I could. I could hear him running, trailing behind me, but he seemed to be slower than me. I ran for what seemed to be ages, until I came to a cafeteria. It was what you imagined it to be, large and open. I'd be trapped if I stayed, but I couldn't turn around now. The surgeon was still stomping his way down the hallway. The kitchen was my only option. I hopped through the serving window and was impressed by the size of this kitchen. I chose to hide inside one of the ovens. There were 5 ovens in total, and everything else was too wide open to risk. I climbed in the last one and held my breath the best I could. The surgeon entered maybe 30 seconds later. He was searching everything, pulling counters off the walls with brute strength and flipping them over. He got to the ovens and searched the first one, then the second, third, fourth. He placed his hands on the door for mine, and that's when I heard something clatter in the cafeteria. He must have heard it too, because he let out a guttural scream. and release the oven to find the source. I might be saved. I waited about 5 minutes before I finally climbed out. I don't know what the sound that spared my life in the moment was, but I wasn't going to stand around to question it. I creeped back to the haunting hallway and walked as lightly as I could to find the stairs. I was going to get out of here, now. A long while in, I was met once again by the woman. "You need to hurry," she told me. "How much farther do I have?" I questioned. "You're getting closer to the stairs. Stay quiet, and once you reach the first floor, run. Each floor has an evil entity haunting it. This floor is the safest. The entity on the first floor is not as dumb as this one. Stay safe. There are hundreds of us trapped here. Now go." I wanted to ask her why she was helping me, but she was gone once again. I eventually saw something shining in the distance. It was my flashlight. I could start running, grab my camera that had to be near, and get out of here. I began my jog, but just as I did, I heard that scream again. The silhouette of the surgeon was on the other side of the flashlight. He was closer to it than I. But remembering how slow he was, I might be able to outrun him. I knew what was behind me, and I couldn't risk getting caught again, with nowhere to hide. I sprinted faster than I ever have in my life. His pace quickened as well. For a time it looked like I might beat him, but once I got closer, I realized the flashlight must have flown pretty far. He was going to beat me. I'm screwed. I'd have to risk juking him. There was no other option. I had never felt this kind of adrenaline before. We met at the stairs at the same time, and I went to dive down the steps, but it was useless. He caught me and slammed me on the ground. He was too powerful. He slammed a knife into my chest, and I felt cold liquid covering my torso. "Tom!" someone yelled. Next thing I knew, someone tackling the surgeon off of me. I scrambled to my feet and flew down the steps, not questioning why they knew my name. I reached the first floor and began another mad dash to escape this hell. The floor was littered with blood. It was everywhere. I could hear hundreds of voices telling me to run. It was overbearing, but I did just that. I reached the doors, went through them like they weren't even there, and flew down the steps. Then I hit an invisible wall. Looking out into the parking lot, there were cars everywhere, mine included. I suppose I got everything I ever hoped for. It wasn't worth it though, because in the end, it cost me my life.